Wonder Woman 1984 stars Gal Gadot, Pedro Pascal, Chris Pine, and Kristen Wiig, and this film is directed by Patty Jenkins. I thoroughly enjoyed the first Wonder Woman film, directed by Patty Jenkins. It is actually one of my favorite DCEU movies. That and Shazam are my favorite movies in the DCEU universe, and Gal Gadot completely kills it as Wonder Woman. Even though it has severe third act problems, it is easily my favorite female-led superhero movie. But enough talking about that film. Let's find out if Wonder Woman 1984 lives up to the original, or even surpasses it. And just to preface, this review will contain spoilers to Wonder Woman 1984. So if you've never seen this film and you want to avoid any and all spoilers, I would highly recommend skipping to this timestamp, so you can receive my spoiler-free thoughts and my final grade on this film. I actually had my expectations for this film relatively high, since I really enjoyed the first one, and on first viewing, I actually had rather positive thoughts on this movie. I thought it was fun and a little bit disposable, but as soon as I watched it again, this time on HBO Max, my opinions kind of drastically changed, and all the various flaws kind of got brought up to the surface. And in simple terms, this movie is actually pretty disappointing, unfortunately. This movie is not Suicide Squad bad. I mean, it's just really disappointing. I just wanted it to be so much more. It does have a lot going for it. This movie is perfectly watchable, but if you really think about it enough, if you really kind of dissect this movie a little bit, the flaws really get brought up to the surface, and it loses a lot of points in my book because of all these various nitpicks, honestly. Some of them are nitpicks, but others are actually pretty major. Despite of what some people on the internet are saying, this movie is not a complete dumpster fire. There are a few things that I do enjoy. For example, I really enjoy the tone of this movie. Like the first movie, this movie is very similar to the first two Richard Donner Superman movies. It isn't overly pretentious, and it isn't dark and gritty. I mean, the Batman character really fits into the dark and gritty tone, but characters like Superman and Wonder Woman don't. And I love how this movie doesn't force the dark and gritty tone onto this character. And I just love how gleefully optimistic this movie is. This is also a very visually impressive film, most of the time. The scene where Steve and Diana are flying over the fireworks display is just so impressive. I really enjoyed seeing it on the IMAX screen. Seeing all the colors lighting up the clouds was just, it was true eye candy. Also, Gal Gadot kills it again as Wonder Woman. She is just so gleefully optimistic and hopeful, and I think this role fits her like a glove. Honestly, she is up there with Hugh Jackman and Robert Downey Jr. I can't see any other actress today perform this role as well as she does. Also, Pedro Pascal does a really solid job as Max Lord. The scenes where he acts all methed out, for some reason, I just find funny. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I just think it's funny. There are a lot of solid scenes in this movie, like the scene where Diana is forced to undo her wish and give up Steve Trevor. I thought that scene was really emotionally powerful. And the mall fight scene. I always love seeing 80s malls in movies. I don't know why. The 80s nostalgia is very present in this movie. It's not too in your face where it becomes bothersome, but it's there, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. Again, this movie is perfectly watchable. You can watch this movie and enjoy it if you turn your brain off. But there are a lot of plot holes in this movie. Some of them are nitpicks. Others are pretty severe. Though my biggest problem with this movie, or one of my biggest problems with this movie, is the way they brought back Steve Trevor. It just came across as so convoluted and a little forced. I mean, if you really break it down, this guy had a life, probably, and a family that cared about him, and now he is missing and was last seen running off with some random chick and stealing a jet. Do you think that that'll raise any issues? Well, okay, my biggest problem is, why didn't they just bring him back as is? Why did they have to bring him back by putting his mind in someone else's body? I mean, the Dreamstone seems like it can do anything. I don't know why they went this route. Steve Trevor is also kind of reduced to Diana's one-dimensional love interest. I mean, he does kind of provide as her sidekick, if you will, but he really doesn't do much in this movie. He's kind of a passive character when you think about it. He's kind of just dragged along with Diana. I wish he had more personality in this film, and I wish he had more to do. Also, this movie went on for way too long. They could have easily shaved off a good half hour of this movie. Also, the ending is pretty convoluted. You just assume everyone renounced their wishes and everything is now fine, I guess? Also, this is pretty nitpicky, but this movie really doesn't line up to the rest of the DCEU. I mean, maybe they might retcon this later in, like, the Snyder Cut. I don't know, but it's very clear that in Man of Steel that the world hasn't seen any supernatural or extraterrestrial events on a massive, massive scale. And in this movie, nukes are deployed, and they mysteriously disappear. We're inches away from World War III, and this is all stopped by an Amazon goddess. I think people would be talking about this. But, again, I don't really care for Man of Steel, so I can let this one pass. Also, this film uses the extremely cliche plotline where the villain tries to befriend the hero at the beginning, but then is let down by them and now wants revenge and becomes the villain and tries to kill the hero. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did it, Iron Man 3 did it, and Batman Forever did it. And every time, it didn't work. And it works better in this film than in those films because Barbara is more of a fleshed out character, but I was still extremely disappointed when they still went this route. Also, the CGI done on Cheetah was pretty bad. On the big screen, it wasn't that noticeable, but seeing it on the small screen at home, my God, it was awful. It was on, like, 90s superhero movie bad. It was pretty awful. And the overall fight is pretty bad too, because it's set at night and you can't really tell what is happening. So overall, I just was pretty let down by the ending of this movie. Oh, so the end credit scene was kind of cool. I didn't really grow up with Linda Carter's rendition of the Wonder Woman character, but I still enjoy how this movie tipped its hat to this character's past. Overall, Wonder Woman 1984 is pretty disappointing, though it isn't the worst movie I've ever seen. In fact, it's far from even being the worst superhero movie ever made. And because of that, Wonder Woman 1984 gets a C+. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my review of Wonder Woman 1984. And if you did, make sure to give this video a like. And if you want more content like this, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell notification so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. And shout out to Sal Volcano and Jeff Tate. Thanks for watching.